you for joining us for the second of 3 Rally Day webinars. My name is Jennifer Easley, and I'm your Texas PTA President-elect and your Advocacy Committee Chair. And I'm also joined by Susie Kennan, our Texas PTA President, Michelle Jackson, the Texas PTA Executive Director, and Randy Kane, the Governmental Affairs Consultant for Texas PTA, who are all here to answer your questions. If you do have a question, please type it into the question and answer box, and we will be monitoring those items. Some will answer directly and some will answer live as time allows. So again, thank you for your participation today, and we look forward to helping everyone to rally together. Our dedication to advocacy is a major difference between PTA and other parent groups. Public education is our one guarantee for a brighter and better Texas. Members sometimes ask how Texas PTA priorities are identified, and you'll see on the screen the process utilized by the Advocacy Committee, a group of PTA members from around the state appointed by the Texas PTA president. This committee was guided by feedback at Texas PTA priority issue listening sessions conducted at launch and via Zoom with members, as well as one with superintendents, results from the Texas PTA member advocacy survey, policy issues submitted for consideration, as well as the issues the legislature is studying now. The committee's recommendations were then presented to the Texas PTA Board of Directors for review, revision, and approval at the October board meeting. And as the session progresses, other priorities may be added. So before we begin a review of the session's priorities, I want you to know that you will have the background materials and talking points you need to be successful in meetings you will have with your legislators and the meetings you have at Rally Day. Texas PTA will be sending detailed emails about each priority with information about how to access the background information. In today's webinar, we'll go through the top priorities as recommended by the Advocacy Committee and chosen by the Board of Directors, and we'll also touch on the other priorities. There are 4 general issue categories of legislation of which Texas PTA focuses. These include health and safety, meaningful assessment and accountability, strengthen public schools, support student success, and Randy will now talk about what our priorities are for our upcoming session.
Thank you, Jennifer. As Jennifer mentioned, the board has now approved the priorities for this session. Texas PTA's top issues include improvement of the A through F accountability system, increasing public school funding, addressing the teacher and staff shortage, opposing vouchers, and increasing support for mental health in schools. And now we'll dive deeper into each one of these. The first lead priority concerns the A through F accountability system. Established by House Bill 22 during the 85th Texas legislature, the A through F accountability system is intended to provide parents, educators, and communities with a transparent view of the academic performance of Texas public schools. The state's A through F system gives each campus, independent school district, and charter school an annual rating of A through F for performance based on 3 indicators: student achievement, school progress, and closing the gaps. Elementary and middle schools are rated on their student achievement based solely on STAR results. Texas PTA will advocate for an accountability system that more broadly reviews school and district performance and includes a family engagement component. Another top priority of Texas PTA this session is public school funding. At a minimum, the state should maintain funding for House Bill 3, legislation that established a more adequate and equitable school funding system in the 86th legislative session. Texas PTA will support legislation that considers enrollment rather than daily attendance, average daily attendance, when determining a school's basic allotment. Currently, only 6 other states use attendance-based funding. Attendance and chronic absenteeism could be addressed in the closing the gap domain of the accountability system. We will support legislation that raises the basic allotment per student and automatically adjusts it based on changes in the cost of living, the Consumer Price Index, moving forward. Texas PTA will also support legislation that allows school district bond and voter-approved tax ratification propositions to include ballot language that accurately informs voters of what the measure seeks to accomplish. And we will support legislation that increases funding for kindergarten from half-day to the now required full day. Our goal is to move to a system that is more equitable, so that a student receives the same quality of education regardless of where he or she lives, and a system that is adequate to meet the needs of all students. The state's budget forecast for the coming biennium is robust. The state will have $149 billion for general purpose spending for the 2024-25 biennium. This results in a projected fiscal 2023 ending balance of $27 billion. The Economic Stabilization Fund, also called the Rainy Day Fund, will have a balance of over $13 billion at the end of fiscal 2023. And sales tax revenue, the largest source of state funding for the state budget, is up by 14% for 2022 over 2021. However, budget constraints in Texas law may prevent the legislature from being able to use all of the surplus this coming biennium. And inflation will increase what the state must spend for infrastructure and operating budgets. And calls for property tax relief may affect how much money can be sent to schools. The next priority is to advocate for legislation that addresses teacher and staff shortages and improves retention. Challenges worsened by the pandemic and some public attitude towards education are moving teachers out of the profession. Now more than ever, the Texas legislature should support retention, recruitment, and development practices that strengthen our teacher workforce. When Texas supports its teachers, Texas supports its future. Research shows that first-class teachers are substantially linked to student achievement, significantly increasing high school graduation rates, college completion rates, and salary earnings. To increase recruitment into the profession, the legislature should support strong incentives that raise the status of teaching and bring diverse talent into our public schools. Research shows high quality mentorship and teacher development improves teacher retention and student performance. Texas PTA wants to keep public dollars in public schools. Texas PTA has long opposed vouchers. We believe that there will be a very strong push this session for vouchers. We will oppose legislation that funnels public dollars away from public schools. Several types of vouchers have been pursued through legislation in Texas. Some of the past proposals have been traditional voucher programs, taxpayer or education savings account programs, special education voucher programs, and tax credit programs. Most recently, we are hearing proposals that rural school districts may be exempted from voucher legislation in order to overcome opposition from smaller communities. Another priority of Texas PTA this session is support for better mental health in schools. A 2022 Mental Health America study shows Texas ranks 51st in the country, including Washington, D.C., in access to mental health services, and the pandemic intensified the needs for more services. We will advocate for legislation that addresses mental health support funding for students and supports teachers and staff receiving mental health first aid training and other training to increase awareness and understanding of mental health and co-occurring mental health and substance use disorders to better support our students. We will also monitor legislation that would increase available mental health providers, including school nurses and school counselors. The TEA recommends one counselor for every 250 students, which is based on recommendations from the American School Counselor Association. Texas PTA supports funding to increase the number of counselors who provide educational programming that teaches students to manage disappointment and frustration, who work with students who are in crisis, and provide programming for parents. Texas PTA is supportive of risk assessment tools that help schools to identify students in crisis and in need of support and intervention. And now that we've covered the top 5 priorities, are there any questions? Okay, we'll continue. Appropriate responses to cyberbullying by students is essential to creating and maintaining a healthy atmosphere on campus. Texas PTA will monitor legislation to ensure the law is not weakened. Support for drug overdose funding is another priority. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, from April 2021 to April 2022, 4,839 Texans died of a drug-related overdose, a 63% increase in fatalities over the last 3 years. Recently, the governor said the state should begin funding distribution of Narcan, a drug that reverses and blocks the effects of opioids, including fentanyl. He said that the state needs to make sure Narcan is easily available in areas of Texas where drugs are most used, and that the drug should be given to law enforcement agencies, hospitals, and schools. Right now, there is no information available on how this drug distribution would be funded. Distracted driving rules in Texas include laws passed in 2013 on the use of wireless communication devices while operating a motor vehicle on the property of a public elementary, middle, junior high, or high school, where a local authority has designated a school crossing zone. Other laws on texting and driving went into effect in September 2017. Approximately 1 of every 5 vehicle crashes in the state is related to distractions like texting. On average, more than 400 people die from distracted driving crashes in Texas each year. Texas PTA will support legislation that strengthens laws that protect children by encouraging safe driving. School meals are critical for keeping students healthy and focused in the classroom. Federal waivers allowing free school meals for all students expired at the end of the 2021-22 school year. By providing healthy school meals for all, we can ensure all students in the state have access to nutritious food at school at no cost to their families. Texas PTA will support efforts to increase state funding to ensure healthy meals for all students. After the Uvalde school shooting in May, both the Senate and House have conducted interim hearings to discuss what is needed to improve school safety. The Legislative Budget Board has recently transferred $400 million of surplus state funds to TEA with the stated purpose of assisting school districts in replacing or upgrading doors, windows, fencing, communications, and other safety measures. This funding for hardening of school facilities and identification of risk assessment tools that help to identify students in crisis and provide support and intervention are key Texas PTA goals of school safety legislation. And also to continue working with the Texas School Safety Center to raise awareness about its safety resources for public schools. Texas PTA will monitor legislation that addresses teaching abstinence as the safest way to avoid unplanned pregnancy and sexually transmitted infections, and also monitor legislation that ensures sex education in public schools includes medically accurate information about topics such as contraception, prevention of sexually transmitted infections, and healthy relationships in 8th grade and higher. We will support efforts to require high schools to provide sex education and allowing parents to opt out if they prefer their student not receive that education. This session, we will support legislation to regulate the sale of e-cigarette products, ban flavors in e-cigarette products and combustible tobacco, and support a tax on e-cigarette products. Most e-cigarettes contain nicotine, which is highly addictive and can harm brain development, which continues until about age 25. E-cigarette aerosol can contain harmful ingredients. More funding for this enforcement of the law is needed. Texas PTA will support legislation that waives criminal responsibility for children and youth when criminal activity results from exploitation by a trafficker. We will also continue monitoring the state's 2019 clemency initiative for victims of human trafficking. Texas PTA will support legislation to raise the age for adult prosecution from 17 to 18. Texas is one of only 3 states that automatically place 17-year-old offenders in the adult criminal justice system, regardless of their crime. Every 17-year-old arrested in Texas is denied the benefits of the rehabilitative focus of the juvenile court. Instead, they are considered adults and are jailed with adults and tried in adult criminal court, where they begin to accrue a permanent adult criminal record. The rights of parents in these cases are limited. Police are not required to inform parents of 17-year-olds of an arrest, and parents do not have a right to be involved in the court process. An adult criminal record creates barriers to getting an education, gaining employment, securing housing, and joining the military. 96% of 17-year-olds who were arrested in Texas in 2013 were arrested for nonviolent and misdemeanor offenses. One of the biggest challenges is the cost for facilities to house the 17-year-old in a juvenile facility. Texas PTA will monitor legislation that provides that a student with repeat violent offenses on campus have their alternate educational placement costs funded by the state rather than their school district. And are there any questions on the health and safety priorities at this time?
Susie, have you had a chance to go through those and see which ones we're going to answer live?
Yeah, I'm looking at those. The one I will definitely answer live because we've been asked it twice is the sex ed is currently opt-in, and that is true. That change went into effect last year. It does have a sunset date. I believe that date is 2024, meaning it would go back to opt-out. We believe that the legislature is going to address that sunset date this next session. We would like to dig into those numbers and see which children and which areas and which demographics were able to opt in, because we are afraid that students that really need the information that aren't getting that information at home aren't going to be the children whose parents send the form back into the school to opt into the information. And Texas has the highest repeat teen pregnancy rate in the country. And so we're just concerned to make sure that those kiddos get the education that they need. So we would prefer the opt-out method. And so we'll be watching that this session. Let's see.
Okay. We'll continue.
Go ahead,
Was that it, Susie?
Yeah, go ahead. I'll get the rest of these.
All right. Texas PTA will monitor legislation impacting charter schools, a form of public school, requiring charters to guarantee parents the same rights and responsibilities as traditional public schools. Texas PTA understands and supports the need for meaningful assessment of students to guide instruction, quantify student progress, and identify learning problems. Texas PTA believes the purpose of testing should be to provide relevant feedback to teachers, parents, and students about students' acquisition of skills. State mandated test results should be just one measure of student progress, not the only measure. Texas PTA also supports elimination of all tests not required by federal law. Texas PTA will monitor all assessment legislation filed. Texas PTA will support legislation that addresses learning loss due to the COVID-19 pandemic. House Bill 4545, passed in the 87th regular legislative session, establishes new requirements for supplemental accelerated instruction for students who do not pass the state of Texas assessments and academic readiness. We will support efforts to improve HB 4545 and TEA rulemaking to put more control back at the local level. Texas PTA will work to secure funding to ensure all Texas public school students have digital connectivity and devices. Texas PTA is a founding steering committee member of Digital Texas, a coalition organized to ensure digital connectivity for all students. At least 1.8 million Texas students lack either devices or access to high-speed internet. Many of these students live in the vast rural areas of the state where basic digital infrastructure is not available. But there is also a significant number of students living in urban centers who lack reliable internet connectivity or devices. Texas PTA will support legislation that continues to allow each school district to determine what books are in its libraries, and a process for parents to be able to decide what books are accessible to their children. And that's it for our priorities for now. Are there any questions that need to be answered at this time?
I'll take one more. Someone asked, what's PTA's stance on education lower than 8th grade? And I think we confused you with the way that we phrased that. We support age-appropriate opt-out sex education in all grades that it's currently done in. We just wanted to make sure we put 8th grade in there because that's when they start talking about healthy relationships and some of those things. And so we just want to make sure that post 8th grade, they get those things. And then under 8th grade, it would be age appropriate information with an opt-out provision for parents. So I apologize if we confused you when we talked about 8th grade. And I think that's it. I'll get the rest of these in the chat.
Okay. And now Jennifer is back with more information on Rally Day participation.
Okay, so to start, membership recruitment is in full swing, and it isn't too late to recruit members who didn't join your campus PTA at the start of the school year. PTA is a membership organization that advocates. So the more members we have, the louder and more influential our voice is, especially when we can tell our legislators that our voice is growing louder each year. So take some time to work with your council or local executive board to evaluate your membership goals and to brainstorm ways to continue growing your membership, to meet your goals, and to even stretch those goals. This really is a team effort, and membership recruitment cannot just rest on the shoulders of the membership VP or the membership chair. It is the entire executive board's responsibility. By working together and sharing all the great work we do at the state and local level, recruiting members really can be easy. So every 2 years during the legislative session, Texas PTA brings our voices together for a day at the Capitol in Austin. At Texas PTA's first PTA Day at the Capitol in 1976, PTA leaders spent the day advocating for making the funding of public education the highest priority, lowering pupil to teacher ratios, and providing parent education programs for grades K through 12. In 2009, to recognize the Texas PTA centennial, leaders rallied on the Capitol steps for the first time, and in 2011, the name Rally Day was born. When you attend Rally Day, you become part of the solution by taking action. When we unite to allow our PTA voices to be heard by our locally elected state lawmakers during the legislative session, we impact their decisions. Rally Day attendees, both students and adults, attend legislative priority caucuses featuring influential lawmakers and meet face-to-face with their legislators to discuss important issues. So let's look at the sample agenda so you know what to expect on a typical rally day. We'll start the day with a check-in and our caucuses for PTA leaders and students. We'll have guest speakers, usually legislators who are carrying bills that we're supporting, come and discuss those issues with us. The student caucus will focus on issues that will resonate with them. In addition to legislators, we've also had a panel of young adults who work at the Capitol for legislators to talk to the students about how they got started working in government, as well as a student panel on their local advocacy efforts in their communities. We'll give you the priority booklets at each caucus location for you to use and leave with your legislators you meet with in the afternoon. There will be signs in support of our priorities for you to grab as we leave and begin our walk to the Capitol. The students will grab signs at their caucus location and begin walking to meet us at the Capitol. When we walk toward the South Steps, that's where our rally will take place. The walk to the rally is usually an amazing time. We'll have a drum line and possibly a few mascots again this year. It makes quite a statement to see all of us and our students with our signs walking together towards the South Steps. A choir or another form of student entertainment will greet us at the steps. During the rally, you'll hear from our president, Susie Kennan, and a few other speakers. Once the rally is complete, it'll be time for your portion of the day. Make plans to get something to eat and then begin sitting down with your legislators or their representatives throughout the afternoon. You'll want to schedule your meetings after 12:30 to have plenty of time to get through security after the rally. And 5 p.m. is the technical end of the day, but many will wrap up their day well before this. Once your meetings are done, you are free to head home. You won't want to miss our upcoming Rally Day webinar. On January 11th, we'll discuss how to set up and conduct meetings with your legislators. You can find the registration links on the Texas PTA Rally Day page, the Rally Day band, and in the Under the Dome newsletter. Here's a quick reminder of the Rally Day resources we have for you. Our main method of Rally Day communication is our Rally Day band. You can access band from a computer web browser or a device app. The Rally Day band will include Rally Day event and logistics information. It also provides a space for you to ask questions and to help build excitement as we get closer to the big day. To get on the band, you can follow the link in the chat if Susie or Michelle can post it in there, or scan the QR code. This information is also included on the Texas PTA Rally Day page. You could also go to texaspta.org/newsroom and complete the quick sign up form to receive the Under the Dome newsletter. You want to sign up for action alerts at txpta.org/take-action. And finally, our advocacy page that has information on the local and state level advocacy is on the Texas PTA websites. Our legislative priorities and a more in-depth background one-pager on each priority will soon be posted in this area of our website. So, as we mentioned before, we have a flyer with a brief statement of each of our priorities. The one-pager will be available in both English and Spanish, and you'll find it soon on our website, and we'll have more in-depth information posted on our website soon as well. Please make sure that Rally Day is on all of your public and board calendars, and that you are including at least a small blurb about Rally Day in all of your communications. It can be a save the date announcement if you don't have your plans in place yet. The first webinar covering the logistics of planning a trip to Rally Day is available on the advocacy page of our website, and make sure that you share that with your board and anyone who is helping with the planning. This webinar will be posted as well and is a great tool for anyone who's planning to attend. If you haven't met with your superintendent or principal yet, get that on the books now, especially if you're wanting to bring students. We've been talking with superintendents about the ways they can support your efforts. Have you started capturing who is planning to attend Rally Day with an RSVP form? That will help with your planning, and it also commits those folks to actually attending. If you need to spend the night, I encourage you to make your hotel reservations now. There's always a conference going on in Austin, so getting those made now will ease that stress. And of course, we hope you and your PTA leaders will all join us on January 11th for our last webinar that will cover the ins and outs of meeting with your legislators. In 2019, our last in-person Rally Day, we had close to 2,000 passionate adults and children attend Rally Day. This year, our goal is to break that record. Our hashtag is TXPTA Rally 23. Be sure to include it when you're posting so we can see all of the great information you're sharing. Michelle or Susie, do we have any additional questions?
There's one other one I'll answer. Tara's asking if there's any inkling that we'll see another bill to ban taxpayer-funded lobbying. Maybe Randy's might be the better person to answer that. I wouldn't be surprised to see it come forward again, but Randy, have you heard anything around that?
Yes, as some of you may know, the last 2 days or the first days of pre-filing bills, and there have been over 1,000 bills filed already, which is, I think, a record, at least while I've been working the legislature. And taxpayer-funded lobbying, yes, there's already been a bill filed by House Member Mays Middleton from the Galveston area. He's about to become a senator. So he has filed, basically, I think, refiled the same bill that he filed last session. And there will be more bills similar to that. There are a few other bills that have been filed that aren't the direct ban, but move around the edges some. So the answer is yes, that bill's already been filed.
Thank you. And I guess our last one, Joe asking for mental health. He's heard mental health COVID ESSER funds went to mental health agencies. He's assuming counties with only learning support funds going to schools. And because of this, with the high strain on school counselors already doing their daily duties, there's a disconnect between student mental health with needs being met and whomever has the funds to help them. Are we hopeful it's funding for specific roles in districts to connect with those in need? Yes. And we've also talked to some superintendents recently about the need for additional counselors that aren't academic counselors. And so one of the problems is there's not a lot of those providers available. There's a shortage on those providers. And so also looking at ways to encourage people to go into that field. So granted, it won't be an immediate solution, but how can we fill that pipeline of mental health professionals? Because this isn't going to get better, and there's such a shortage of those professionals. For some families, it's a 3 to 6 month wait to even get an appointment to see one of those mental health professionals. And so it's a huge issue with lots of different areas that we want to focus on to try and backfill that pipeline, as well as get our kids on campuses the help that they need. So thanks for asking that question, Joe. Okay, I think that's it. That's all I see right now.
All right. Well, I want to thank you again for spending this time with us and for your excitement about Rally Day. We get more and more excited the closer we get, and please know how very much we appreciate all you're doing on behalf of the students of Texas, and we hope you will join us for our last webinar in January. Thanks again, and you have a great day. Bye-bye.